Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 26th Annual A.T. Wainwright Global Investment Conference. Thank you for attending. And with us today as our next company is the new CEO of Cassava Sciences. Now, their main drug, their lead asset, is simufilam, which is an oral small molecule being developed for Alzheimer's disease. Rick, just wondered if you could tell us why developing a drug for Alzheimer's disease is important.
Well, first of all, Vernon, thank you for doing this interview and for inviting us this year, and much appreciated, especially given all the controversy in the company in the past. Why is it important? Well, it's a horrible disease, and we've got 6 to 7 million people in the U.S. alone, that are diagnosed with the disease, and however many more with the mild version of it on the way to these are big numbers, and there are drugs out there to treat it. The generics, especially like Aricept, are kind of this first stage. But most of the doctors I talk to tell me the drugs really don't do very much, and if they do, the effect really isn't all that. And recently we've had some good news from the FDA. They've approved 2 monoclonal antibody-based drugs, which are it's progress. But these drugs, they've got really serious adverse events that go with them, and they're, the amount of improvement you get is versus the declining scale, and so it's, it's an advance, and that's good for people with the disease, but we're hoping to do better with simufilam.
Yeah, the Alzheimer's Association actually projects by 2050 that we'll be spending upwards of $60 billion a year in the care of these patients alone annually, and that it would be a tremendous burden not only to the healthcare system but for those who care for their loved ones. Because as you know, this is a progressive disease. Now, one of the things that those other drugs and simufilam seems to do is actually change the progression of this disease. I've written some notes published on them, comparing it to one of the drugs that's used the most before the monoclonal antibodies, and the Nezapil. After 6 months, just about all drugs basically stop working and the disease continues to progress, whereas simufilam has shown the potential to actually change this course. Can you talk a little bit about the science that supports simufilam's potential, though, to play a role?
Yeah, well, in terms of the proof, whether it's going to provide that efficacy or not, we're going to find out pretty shortly when we have the first phase 3 readout, which will be by the end of this year. But the mechanism of action is different. Typically, we've seen for years and years, large pharmaceutical companies have been doing phase 3 trials for Alzheimer's drugs. Generally, they've gone after drugs that are targeting amyloid plaque and trying to remove amyloid plaque from the brain. And up until recently, those trials, consistently failed. This is a different, it's a different way of approaching the disease. So the theory behind the method of action is that amyloid beta 42 binds to the A7 receptor in the brain. And what seems to enable that binding and cause the problem in the brain is it recruits this large scaffolding protein, filament A. And when filament A gets in the picture, that's when all the phosphorylation starts to happen, down the track. And so this, what we've seen at least so far, phase 2 results, is, and this to me was, very impressive, and one of the reasons that I'm here, is that in the phase 2, we started with 216 patients, and it was, there were certainly weaknesses in the trial. It was open label. Everybody knew they were getting the drug. But after 12 months, there were 216 patients. After 12 months, patients were given the option of remaining on the drug or terminating the trial, or if they wanted to remain on the drug, way to do it was 50% of those would be assigned to a placebo group for 6 months and 50% would stay on the drug. And then after that additional 6 months, everybody would be back on the drug. And And what was persuasive about that trial, at least to me, was that at the end of 2 years, the mild patients in the trial showed virtually no cognition decline. I mean, that is unheard of. And, again, there are weaknesses. It's a phase 2 trial. It was open label, but nobody has seen results like that before.
Mm-hmm. Now, there were two things that also impressed me about those results. One of them, and they both revolve around the biomarker results. One of the things I think that supports one part of science that supports simufilam's effect is the fact that the biomarkers that were measured in the plasma samples all tended to go in the direction you wanted to go when you wanted to see improvement in the patient's condition, whether it be a rise in one marker or a decrease in one marker. They all seem to be consistent, patient to patient. And one of the things that really excited me about that is simufilam seems to work very fast. In fact, it seemed to work as soon as 28 days. There was some controversy, though, about the results at the time. Just wondered if you could touch a little.
Some controversy? The guy got arrested. CEO quit.
A little bit about the controversy and how the two ongoing phase 3 clinical trials are addressing that. And
how's the rest of the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
The two phase 3 clinical trials.
Sure. So when the phase 2B biomarker analysis was done first, it was sent off to a university lab in Sweden.
This is kind of like when you got a nice glazed donut, you can't wait to eat it, and you drop it. And you're like, 5-second rule, maybe, I don't know. Not me. But for these cassava people, it's like you're dropping the donut, and it lands in a puddle of New York City rainwater. And you pick it up and you drop it again. This time, it's in a big thing of dog poop. And you're like, man, this thing's still good, right? You pick it up and it's got hair and all kinds of crap on it. And you're like, fuck it. Yummy. Is that disgusting or what? Yummy. Homeless guy piss, soda cans, oil spill. There's a needle sticking out of it. It's still good. It's a 5-second rule.
I think just about everybody who's investigated it now recognizes that the results ended up getting messed up. So they showed, for same patients, biomarkers going in different directions. It just really didn't make any sense. So management at the time wanted to have those redone. And
he doesn't say it's an externality.
At City University in New York for Dr. Haoyun Wang, who was co-collaborator on the drug very early on. And Dr. Wang's analysis looked absolutely brilliant. I mean, high correlation, statistically significant,
brilliant.
Really remarkable. So in some respects, in hindsight, the Lund University results were, too bad to be true, and Dr. Wang's might have been too good to be true. So subsequently,
too bad to be true.
We put out a paper, as you probably saw back in July, where
sometimes drugs just don't work.
About was Dr. Wang able to unblind himself to 30% of the samples that he had in front of him back then? In the government's investigation, they believe that he was capable of doing that. I don't know if he did it or not, but to be cautious, we've told investors you shouldn't rely on those results. But they're not the only biomarker results we have. We have the results from Quanterix, from basically the same samples. And while they don't look as brilliant as Dr. Wang's, they still look really good. So if you go forward to the phase 3 trial, at least for the one that's about to read out, we have 800 patients enrolled, roughly. And of those patients.
They want to make the company a referendum on the other problems in their life, right? And look, we all have problems in our life. That's fine. But you cannot import those issues into your decision-making process because they're weighing on you. Yeah, government's corrupt. My taxes are too high. We're losing faith in media and science. This has nothing to do with this company. I can't trust the government. Yeah, no, that's all true, but it has nothing to do with it. And, you know, your problems are not... Like, when you watch that crazy guy, the bald dude, what's his name, Springer? He's like, you know, he's a conspiracy theorist talking about Mossad agents. And it's like, dude, yeah, you have issues. Clearly, you have issues in your life that most of us do not have. You need some Risperdal, some Seroquel. It's no problem, you know. But, you know, the world's not out to get this stupid drug company. I mean, and you can't take the issues that you know exists or maybe that you've created for yourself in the real world and then all of a sudden import them and say, no, all of these make sense when I look at cassava. Big Pharma's trying to stop cassava. There's big pharma companies without any Alzheimer's drugs. Without any. In the works. Johnson & Johnson would love to buy or partner with cassava. Are you crazy? Oh, Johnson & Johnson has nothing to lose. How about Roche? Very little going on at Roche. How about Pfizer? They would all love to partner with cassava, buy out cassava. They would write huge checks to do so. It's no conspiracy. It's just a shitty drug. This guy's, oh, it's too bad to be true. No, some drugs are bad. They don't work.
Since 100 of them had plasma analyzed. So we're measuring p-tau 217, NFL, and GFAP. So there were readings taken at baseline, there were readings taken
half
after
these biomarkers
trial,
don't
and
mean
there were
anything.
readings taken at completion.
They're not reliable.
And the really interesting thing is that we're going to have those results when we announce the cognition data later this year. So you're going to get both, you're going to get the two primary endpoints as well as getting molecular data. So we're pretty excited to see what that looks like.
And just to remind investors, this is Rethink, which is the 52-week study, 800 patients, dose of 100 milligrams simifalam. And at the time of the last press release, 555 have completed the study. That's where these results are expected to come from, right?
That's right. That's right.
And the other study is 1,100 patients. It's called Refocus. That actually involves two doses, 50 milligrams and 100 milligrams, but it is 76 weeks long. 420 have completed as the last time of disclosure. That's not expected to read out until mid to the latter half of next year, right?
If you are a husband and wants your wife to fall passionately in love with
The hell?
you again, then this will be the most important video you watch all day. It doesn't take two to transform your marriage from the most difficult times in your life into happiness and passion.
This is the best ad I've ever seen.
More and more joy daily. And unless you understand this, you will never be able to get your wife to stop the complaining or her criticizing
She's always
you.
criticizing
Go to
me.
therapy for years, do everything to try to make her happy, but the joy won't be there. My name is Rabbi Eisenberger, and
you,
I'm
Rabbi.
the founder and CEO of the Passionate Marriage Roadmap. And I'm sharing this
I'm in. Let's go. I need to claim my spot. He became a rabbinical community rabbi in 2008. I don't know. I like my rabbis a little more experienced.
Probably mid,
Mid.
possibly in June of next year, yeah, but right around that.
Okay.
And that
Now-
trial actually has a few more bells and whistles on it than the first does. So there are, in addition to the biomarkers that I've just mentioned you'll see in the first trial, we'll have the same biomarker readings, but we also have imaging. So we've got CT scans, PET scans, and there's also a group of patients who have had CSF.
Self-hating
analyzed.
Jew!
Now, that's pretty hard to get patients to agree to do, and I don't blame them. So it won't be that many samples. I think there'll be less than 100, but still, there will be some analysis of CSF biomarkers in that as well.
Now, a feature of these studies that you had announced recently was that you're going to allow some of these patients to continue on study drug, yes?
That's right. Yeah, initially the open label extension. So, I mean, the way you've got to recruit these trials is because people have a 50% chance of going in placebo, at least in the first trial, is you have to give them the ability to get on the drug. That's why they're going to get in there. And the way this was structured was that when the 12 months for the trial was over, you had the opportunity to join an open label extension trial and get the drug for a year. And what we've done recently, I think we announced a month or so ago that we're now extending the extension. So what we're going to do with the open label extension is we'll extend it as far as another 3 years, but we've added some biomarker and cognition measurements to that study because we'd really like to see what the data looks like in the very long term. We think that's going to be really valuable. And frankly, it was really hard to, in my case, I get emails from, loved ones of patients who tell me the loved one who's on the open label extension and they're worried about the data that's going to come. And, as we got together, the rest of the team and I just thought, look, people have gone to the trouble of getting on this trouble. They feel as though they're getting a benefit, whether or not they are, we'll see when we get the results. But how can we take the drug away from when it's really their last hope?
Yeah.
And so for us, it just made the most sense to look, there's definitely a benefit for us to have this trial because we'll get more data on these patients. And if the patients, want to stay in the drug, that's good for them as well. So it will cost us some money, but it's certainly worth it.
Now, one of the things about these studies along those lines is the fact that you could see improvement without unblinding the study. But along those lines, and that's the reason why these studies need to be necessarily large. That is, sometimes you could see a placebo effect, but I believe these are sufficiently long enough that, you'll definitely have a separation, in my opinion, at 52 weeks and certainly at 76 weeks versus, the control group. Just wondering if you could comment a little bit about the level of excitement about, participation in these studies. On the patient side as well as the investigator side.
Yeah, it's interesting. The trials at first seemed slow to recruit, but once we got to maybe it was a third of the way full. I mean, I wasn't running the company then; it was just a director, but it really seemed to accelerate. Now, I mean, you could read things into that and say, well, maybe investigators are gaining conviction, or I don't know what it was, to be fair. But we're really excited to see the data. It's again, we look at what we saw in phase 2. We look at what we've seen in biomarkers. We look at the method of action. It's if this works, this will be it could be a disease modifying drug that treats Alzheimer's, and it may have so far what we've seen is a safety profile that's just really pristine.
Yeah, that's certainly my expectation. Although I have a neutral on the stock, I have previously projected that we could see peak sales approaching 10 billion, which is not unheard of in the drug discovery industry. When you have a whole huge number of patients waiting for treatment that actually works, as we saw in the past when Harvoni came on the scene for patients who were waiting for a drug that they could take for only as little as 12 weeks versus a 24 or 48 week interferon therapy. The drug sold $10 billion
There's no doubt. It could be 20 billion, 30 billion, 40 billion, 50 billion, 100 billion. I think an Alzheimer's drug that works really well could literally be 200, 300 billion. Fine. Cool. But is this that drug? It's sort of like saying, if you get to have sex with Sydney Sweeney, you'd be really happy. Really, really happy, wouldn't you? And I'd be like, yeah, I'd be pretty happy, and someone would be fighting with me. No, you'd be the happiest person in the world. Right, sure, okay, but I'm not going to have sex with Sydney Sweeney. Either way. We could debate how good it's going to be, but it's not happening. There's no chance. Yeah, but there's like a 0.1% chance you have sex with Sydney Sweeney. And if you'd be that happy, super duper happy, the happiest guy in the world, it's kind of like you have that 0.1% chance, so you're happy now. Yeah, I get that. You know what? I should put all my money on this. Because if the 0.1% chance happens, I'll be really happy. So let me bet it's going to happen. Yeah, man. Efficient market hypothesis.
His first full year on the market. So it's possible, and there's certainly a lot more patients with Alzheimer's than there are with
He's laughing at him.
chronic hepatitis C infection. So just to round out a few things in the last minutes that we have, the SEC investigation, you have set aside $40 million for that. Sounds like you have agreement, just waiting for the announcement and final word. Any further update on that?
Yeah, we're very confident that 40 million is the right number. These things take a while. I think sophisticated people take a look at, the calendar and recognize that the calendar, government's fiscal year, I think ends in the end of September.
I want to give you this book for free. It contains the exact roadmap that you can use.
I would imagine that the commission would like to have this done by then, but I don't know if they'll have it done by then. We think that we'll get there. We think we have the right number, but we'll see in the not too distant future whether this gets done.
Yeah, they probably don't operate on a fiscal year, but the new fiscal year for government usually starts October 1st. So I'm crossing my fingers to get it put it behind. And just also
me too.
Yeah, you go get to the finish line clean and carefree. Speaking of that, now everything that's associated with Dr. Wang is now separate from the company. Yes.
Yeah. And look, I've never met the man, to be fair.
Wait. Say that again? Remember, Dr. Wang made the drug that is this company.
And carefree. Speaking of that, now everything that's associated with Dr. Wang is now separate from the company. Yes. Yeah.
And look, I've never met the man, to be fair. From what in looking at the history of the discovery, he seems to me to be an incredibly clever, inventive scientist.
Yeah, he inventive.
I really couldn't speak to him, but he certainly came up with some important, when he discovered the binding of...
He's inventive, all right.
Amyloid beta 42 to the A7 receptor. I mean, that was discovered, I think, in 1999. He was doing a consulting project for Johnson & Johnson. I mean, that's pretty well accepted these days. So,
no, it's not.
A lot of bad things have been written about the guy, and he's gone through a really hard time. I feel badly for him. Again, I don't know him. But, we have, as a company, we have had to move on. Dr. Wang had nothing to do with our phase 3 program.
Other than he made the drug it's in.
Jim Kupek, who you've met, has come in and he's managed the phase 3. Jim's a very experienced guy.
No, they've been writing the same drug for like 10 years, maybe. Barry's not going to prison.
The trial has been run by Premier Research. Biostatistics will be done by Pentara. So, data has been totally sequestered. we don't know what it looks like. We won't know until they tell us it's ready.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all been independent.
And then just to fully tidy up, what can we expect between now and year end and mid next year as far as announcements?
Well, you can expect a readout of the phase 3. That's about as big a catalyst as you can get. Again, we're pretty excited about it. I imagine every biotech CEO says the same thing, but I think we have good reason to be excited about it. We will have. There are a number of other things that we're doing. For example, the method of action has been under question by the critics. Haven't been able. They claim that the experiments that Dr. Wang did haven't been replicated. Well, they have. They've been done by other universities, and so we're going to publish more of that. But the main thing we're going to do is, and we've already started this process, is we've engaged a number of labs around the world to replicate some of the things that have been in question. And there are 7 or 8 different tests that we're having done. We intend to get that data. We won't get it until after the phase 3 is announced. But when we get it, we'll report the results, and we'll report them whether they were good or bad or indifferent. And the same is true of in the phase 2 program. There are roughly 2,000 samples, plasma samples from the patients there. And those samples were never analyzed. They're being analyzed now. There is, it may not be a perfect thing to analyze them right now because, these samples in some cases are 4 to 5 years old, but they've been stored at the right temperature. We've done an audit of some of the samples to make sure that we have good reason to believe that they'll be quality. And we'll get a result from them. So we want to see what happened to the biomarkers in the phase 2 study. That work's already begun. We will get that data. Again, we're not going to get it until after the phase 3 is reported. But imagine if we had good biomarker data from the phase 3 trial, and we were able to then show that the phase 2 looked an awful lot like it. That would be highly persuasive. Again, we don't know what we're going to get. That's why you're on the trial. But we're excited to do it.
Yeah, that's a great approach to actually be blinded to and preserve the integrity.
Yeah.
Well, certainly looking forward to the readout. It'll be a big day for the company, and
it will.
I'm on the record for my call as far as I think they'll be positive for sure, and hopefully it just slides on the way to the 76 week results as also being positive, but more importantly, changing the course of progression of this disease. So.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention, and I probably should have, was in that phase 2, when the patients went into that period where, half of them were stayed on the drug and half went off, I actually found that really persuasive. Again, it's, we're going to see in phase 3 whether that holds up.
Failed.
The interesting thing is the patients that went on placebo for 6 months, they did decline, but they didn't decline very much. And to me, again, I'm not a scientist, so take this with a grain of salt. That would suggest to me that the drug might actually have disease-modifying qualities because the patients should have declined a lot faster.
The placebo declined the same.
Yeah, we will see. Well, Rick, I want to thank you for joining today for a fireside chat on Cassava Sciences. Hopefully, investors got the insight that they needed to make an investment in Cassava. I think we really learned a lot about what to expect and the status of any controversy that may be still holding investors back as far as investing in Cassava. So we want to thank you. We want to thank investors for attending the A2A Global Investment Conference, and hopefully see an opportunity in Cassava Sciences. Thank you.
That's great. Well, thank you again for having me, and just stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, the results were bad. They didn't beat placebo. Makes me so mad. Makes me so mad I can kill. Not again. Yeah, it's possible. They become a conspiracy stock, conspiracy pharmaceuticals. Failure? Well, what failure? We never report the trial. We just keep filing until the FDA says yes. 1,000 no's could equal 1 yes. Yeah, most of it's retail. I'd say like 75%. Yeah, I don't know what academics could save this. It was expected. It was expected to be approved. Shouldn't be up any. Cobenfy. Congratulations to Bristol Myers. Huge new product. Easiest short in years. Years. Free money. Where's my Gorilla Gas? Ah. I'm just kidding. That was not Gorilla Gas. Or Galaxy Gas, for that matter. I do need some eye drops. I had a whole thing of eye drops here somewhere. No, there's not going to be a subgrouper signal. Nobody's going to believe that. The stock will go down on that. I've dry eye. I mean, not bad, but my eyes are dry right now. Is that okay? Is that okay with you? Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you have a great weekend.